Seat failure on takeoff, May 2017. On Sunday, 16th October 2016, a Cessna 150 crashed at Bourn Airfield on takeoff, and I sent a text to my flying partner saying that I thought it could be the classic case of seat lock failure. This is where the seat lock is not fully engaged, and as the pilot rotates, it can rush back. The pilot hangs onto the yoke, and the aircraft pitches up, stalls, and spins into the ground. The following weekend, we both arrived at the airfield and again discussed the possible reason for the crash. We checked out my Cessna and prepared for startup. As I am aware of the seat failure situation, I always lock the pin in place and then rattle the seat back and forth to check that it is locked. We taxied out to the warm-up area and I carried out my pre-flight checks. Again, as part of my checks, I rattled the seat. I then lined up on the runway, did a few more checks, and opened the throttle. As I approached takeoff speed, I rotated the aircraft, and when we were about 10 feet off the ground, my seat suddenly shot backwards. My arms were at full stretch, and I could not reach the rudder pedals or the throttle. I am short. My co-pilot shouted at me, "Nose down," and I shouted back, "Take control." He pushed the yoke forward and the aircraft wallowed, then went downwards, picking up speed. We cleared the runway and climbed out, and he asked what had happened. We did a circuit, and I asked him if he was okay landing from the right seat, and he said, "Possibly." Not a good answer. So I pulled my seat forward and locked the pin again. I noticed that it did not have any tension from the spring that pulls it downwards and keeps it in place. We decided that I would land the aircraft, but he would follow me through and take control for a go-around if necessary. I landed okay and taxied back to the ramp. Upon examination, we found that the spring had broken and was hanging on one point. I took out the spring and thought I would check how bad the spring was. I got a pair of pliers to bend the top of the spring, which then snapped off. I bent another bit and that snapped off. The spring, which I assume was the same age as the aircraft as it was painted the same color as the seat, so 51 years old, was completely metal fatigued. Lessons learned. I have now changed both front seat springs, but it has occurred to me that the springs have a limited life and they should perhaps be replaced over a certain period, say 10 years. Unfortunately, Cessna charge for each spring, which may discourage owners to replace them at regular intervals. A further point is that we as pilots who often fly as P2 should practice flying from the right-hand seat in case of emergency, especially landing and in a crosswind. The situation is so different from what one is used to. Even though the accident the week previously was fresh in my mind, my seat rushing back still came as a shock. And if my co-pilot hadn't taken control immediately, the situation could have been very much worse.